Hi,
Hi
Patrick. How
everyone.
are you?
Hey Derek, I'm good, thank you. How is it
I'm
going?
I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, me too. I've been looking forward to it. And I heard you had a few talks today already now.
I had one on Monday with a Dutch designer.
Yeah.
Um, I was sort of teasing. This is the first time I've done something with Helsinki Fashion Week, and it feels a little like speed dating. They've been
Yes.
introducing me to all these fabulous people, and
Yes.
maybe like digital speed dating because obviously because of what's happening in the world, it's all been virtual. But I'm so
Mhm.
happy to meet you today.
Thank you too. It's
Um,
exciting.
as you and I had emailed, and so I have kind of I have a pretty good idea of how you started your career in fashion. But if you could just remind me and anyone who's sort of watching, where are you from, where you went to design school, and how you got
Yes.
started on all this, would be
Yeah.
great.
So I grew up in Liverpool, which is like a city in the north of England, which is kind of famous for its kind of peacock style, kind of similar to New Jersey. Uh, and
I've never
then
heard
kind
that.
of
That's actually great. That's actually
yeah,
perfect. That's
yeah. It all makes sense when you know that. And after that, when I was about 13, I started like selling bags and some evening things for just like people that lived on kind of in Liverpool, and they were always made from recycled fabrics, like dead stock fabrics, because there happened to be a chain of fabric stores there that sold that kind of stuff cheaper than normal stuff. And then I went to Central St. Martin's when I was 19 and kind of stopped selling things and just focused on learning how to design. And then in the middle of that, interned at Burberry for a year and kind of was really shocked at the amount of waste that fashion houses produce and the fact that the whole system kind of seems slightly not as modern as it could be.
yeah.
Um, and then I went back to St. Martin's and kind of all this sustainability stuff had started to get kind of thrown around. And I was thinking, wow, actually, I've been doing those things since I was a child. So, I'll probably continue to do that because I'd got all my fabrics from Christopher Bailey at the time was still at Burberry. So I ended up with all these amazing Burberry fabrics, and we made the collection out of kind of the waste fabrics from the show. And then it was like the graduate collection was well received in the media, and there's a few celebrities wearing it and things. So then I started the brand and do a show once a year. And last year I did one in Helsinki, and the next one is a digital one called Catholic Fairy Tales, which is on Monday at 6:15 British Standard Time.
I saw the one that was in Helsinki. It is on YouTube for anyone who is watching and curious to see it. I thought it was such a fabulous presentation, super diverse casting. Obviously, sustainability is such a big part of that show.
Mhm.
Um, that was great. What I can't wait
Thank
to see the
you.
one on Monday. How is sort of? I mean, you've obviously done two shows, one that was in person and one that will be digital. How was that sort of flip or that switch?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was, I think like anything you don't understand so well, you always imagine it's not going to be very much work. Like people that don't make people that don't make clothes always think, oh, you must be able to do it fairly quickly. So uh, I had this idea that it would be like this super fast computer thing, but actually it's very respectful of the crafts that you have to use for um, pattern cutting and sewing, because if you don't know how to sew things together or you don't know how certain fabrics work with each other, then the computer system mimics real life. So if you've done it wrong, it looks wrong there too.
Right.
Yeah, so it was. I was kind of interested by that because it's people always talk about how the digital age is kind of ruining craft and all this stuff, but I think actually at the moment anyway, the programs are quite respectful of the knowledge you have to make the
I
clothing,
had,
and it.
I had actually never thought about that those digital programs kind of rely on a knowledge of craft,
Mm.
the application of craft.
Yeah, because I think initially they were developed to speed up the process of development, so you could go straight to factory.
Right.
So they kind of, at the moment, they're built to imitate real life. But I was actually saying I wish that they didn't imitate real life and you could turn the gravity off, so you could kind of do something a bit more crazy. Because I think most of the things I'd asked the computers to do, it was a lot for them to cope with because I was using too much fabric, and it's like digital couture almost.
Like that funny show. What is that? Computer says no. Computer
Yeah,
says no.
I think it said no quite a few. I think it was quite frustrating for the digital people that had to work on it. But it's been really interesting, and I think obviously that things were going this way anyway. But I guess the coronavirus has sped up the digital trajectory because, well, obvious reasons.
I also think what's happened has not only sped up digital, but it's, hearing you talk about how you sort of organically came about the sustainability point of view with your brand and what you're doing, is that I find that the last 6 months has any little problem that we had. Obviously, you and I are talking about fashion, but that applies to any industry or social situation. The past 6 months has really fertilized that or like amplified it.
Yeah,
Whether that's sustainability in the supply chain or in production, how fast department stores are putting stuff on sale, buying fur coats, or fake fur coats being exact in August and swimsuits in January. So it's been sort of incredible to see these smaller nuggets of ideas get flushed out by the past 6 months.
yeah. And it's even like at the moment I'm actually in Italy doing a project for a brand here that's basically using their dead stock clothing and fabrics and kind of combining them together to make a new collection out of that. Which like I can't say the brand yet, but for me that's so fascinating because I've been harping on about this for like 3 years now, saying that was a really great way to use up things that were left over, and to see someone really kind of grab it by the horns and do it is super exciting.
And when you think about it, I mean, I don't want to single Burberry out because a lot of brands did this, but there were a
Yeah,
lot of brands who would, they would burn dead stock,
yeah,
they
yeah,
would incinerate leather goods, which is, insane.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that because it's not. I think if you get the right people in to reimagine these things, the financial aspect of the first of all, the marketing story behind it is huge. Also, the value of the actual item is higher because it has a longer story to it, and I think that's what people buy into now. They don't necessarily buy into just a product; they buy into like the story around it, and
Right.
to know that you might be using like Anna Wintour's old Chanel bag that's been like redone by Donatella Versace for Chanel or something like that. It's like, wow, I'm gonna spend like $50,000 on that
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
Yeah.
Increases its worth.
What was that?
Increases its worth.
Yeah, it does. I really do think it does actually. And anyone that does clothes as well, like takes anything apart, when you take it apart and put it back together again, obviously it takes more time because you're doing kind of two things.
Yeah.
So even time wise, it's worth more.
Patrick, I was so I was so touched, I guess, or I could identify with some of the brand story that you sent about growing up in a super religious family and having an alternative lifestyle, so to speak. And I know some of what we're supposed to talk about today is sort of how the digital world can help support those kind of stories. Um,
Yes.
that was so nice of you to share, and it's so great to see that have sort of a positive. Not all those stories end up with happy endings. I'm happy to see that all worked out, or is working itself out. I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's been the really interesting thing, because the first collection I did was based on a climbing trip my dad did to Mont Blanc in the Alps when I was 6, and the idea of kind of climbing up the mountain with him, with my like glamorous Liverpool mom, and you know, like mixing all that together. But in, at the same time, it really brought me and dad closer together, because I had to speak to him a lot about all this climbing equipment that I had obviously no idea what it was. And that was really interesting, because it was the first time I'd done anything where we could really actually talk about something that I was working on together. And then the second one was based on dad being a firefighter and my mom and her 6 sisters, and imagining them making this like glamorous Liverpool fire brigade, because women tend to put out all the fires in families. So that was really nice, because I spoke to all my aunties and asked them about all their favourite clothes over their lives. And there's 15 years between my mom and her eldest sister, so they have this kind of generational crossover of styles, which is like my eldest auntie was in like Mary Quant style dresses when she was 20 and stuff. So that was really fascinating. And then for this one about being a Catholic, I really wanted to look at how kind of gay, queer people are treated in kind of Catholic education and by the church itself, and kind of take that back and think, what would it look like if I made kind of a version of the Catholic Church that accepted all of us, and what would those robes look like? So that's the story behind this one. But in a weird way, I really feel like I've always found the emotional connection to clothes incredibly strong, but I do feel like developing these collections is therapy.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I know
not only therapy for you, but I also think nowadays, as we become more conscious of what we're buying, we also want to make sure that I think storytelling is also important to brands. And I see that so much in what I do and the brands that I work with, is that as you are, you know, building a brand and building your digital footprint, you need to have sort of something to say.
yeah. And I think it's
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I just think that it's interesting, because whereas before, maybe trying to express yourself in the physical world can be sometimes quite scary, depending on where it is that you live and the type of family you come from. Who you are in the digital world is quite freeing, as long as your parents don't have your Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever.
Search history.
Yes. But so I think that's even interesting, just thinking about how in the future, maybe when people have these kind of digital lives, they could experiment first there before then going on to be more open when they move to London and go to Central St. Martin's like I did.
But it's also sort of amazing to see on YouTube that there's been this incredible, you know, I'm a little bit older than you, Patrick. I won't say how much older than you, but a couple of years. And so when I was, you know, a teenager or growing up, you know, I didn't have access to men who wore makeup, girls who like girl, you know, like in any of these sort of stuff, you really didn't even have access to it. So it's incredible to work at a company that now has made that such a big part of their core viewership.
Yeah, and I think they have. I mean, it's. I think it's people the generation below me and the generation below that as well that are seeing
There's another one below you. Oh, geez.
I think now there's
Oh my
2
God.
below me. Yeah, because I think that's. But it's just really amazing to see it, you know, like everyone, especially like, I just think it's incredible, especially the makeup people are just so, I'm like, because I don't really wear that much makeup, and I look at them and I'm like, how did you do it? It's like, how did you paint that on a face? Like, I couldn't even paint that on a canvas.
I feel the same way. And also as someone who sort of, you know, I do all the fashion and the beauty content, and sometimes you're just like, oh my, you know, you're using tools I've never seen before, and you know, it's a very robust community and a very thorough process.
Yeah, and they seem to have a lot of supporters as well. You know, like it really feels like a community from what I've seen. There's people have like these huge followings, and yeah, I mean, obviously there's always going to be people that say stupid things online, but I think for them, people seem to have these real like core followings of people, like James Charles's sisters.
Yes, the Sister
The
Squad.
sisters, yeah. And my friend was telling me he like releases stuff on his website and it's gone,
Yeah.
like within like seconds.
But I think that also speaks to how people are so, happy to be a part of a community.
Definitely, for sure.
I like James Charles, and so the Sister Squad merchandise
Mm,
is not, it's not haute couture. I mean, it's like super cool and super comfy, but I
yeah,
think in that case, you're really you're supporting a community that you love and you believe in versus, you know, um, he doesn't do evening wear, so to speak. He doesn't.
no. But I've even found that really interesting recently because my business is basically almost like a PR company disguised as a fashion designer centered around sustainability. So really, little expose, I don't actually sell clothes. I sell like experiences and
Right.
workshops, brand partnerships and sustainability advice, but the clothes are in the middle of it, but that's not what people buy into the story of that.
Yeah.
But I don't really produce the clothes. I mean, it might be something that I change in the future, but at the moment it's working where I don't have to do it. But it's kind of going back to that thing of it's more about the story that you're telling rather than the individual garments, I think
Yeah.
now.
And I also think it's so great for someone in your position where sustainability doesn't really feel like a marketing word anymore.
Mm,
It feels like it's a real thing. Um,
yeah.
People are actually legitimately worried about it versus like, oh, the trend this season is sustainability. It feels like now a way of life we have to think about.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's really important that people don't. I think sometimes people can be a bit serious with it, and they kind of go in all guns blazing with these like really horrifying statistics, and like we all know, if you do that with anything, people's reaction is just to close down.
Yeah, I think you're
So
right.
I think if you can do a small project here and there, or you can change one pair of jeans into something better or whatever. Like for me, that's great. Like these big brands are like huge ships. Like I'm in my tiny sailboat and I can spin around in whatever direction I want to go in, or sink or float, whatever. But if you're the Titanic,
Or
it's a
jump
lot harder.
ship.
Or jump ship, yeah, just swim away. And I think for these like bigger brands, they're such huge Titanic ships that they need time to do their U-turn or whatever.
Yeah,
So it's a few things at a time, and then eventually, because the only other way for it to happen is if the brand completely stopped everything they did for 2 years, restructured everything, and
yeah,
then opened again. But we all know shareholders aren't going to let that happen. So
yeah. And retrained all their workers or find new factories.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's not that easy, is it?
No, and then you have to think: is it sustainable to put all those people out of a job and
Yeah,
all that? Because I think that's also the nice-ish thing that came from recent events, is that people have kind of put a bit more of an emphasis onto the people that actually make the clothes, which has always been kind of missing. Because I think like when it is just a marketing thing, people talk a lot about fabrics, but not necessarily about where it's made or who made it and how you treated the person that did make it. So
yeah,
that's been kind of, I mean, it's because they treated them badly during the virus, but hopefully it's shone a bit more of a light onto the fact that people, I mean, I've always thought the most important part of sustainability is the people, and then everything else should come after that, I think, because yeah, otherwise it seems a bit stupid.
So Patrick, where do you hope to be in 5 years? Talk to me about your five. This is true mentorship.
5 year
Tell me your
plan,
5 year plan. Your 10 year plan.
10 year. But the idea is eventually that, so at the moment I kind of work where I have these brand partners and I work with them on like different projects throughout the year. And then the idea is that eventually the brand partnerships would become more desirable to more brands, but I'd always keep it at 5. But then the value of each partnership would go up as more people wanted to do it. But obviously whoever kind of either is like the highest bidder or gets them first, they're the 5. And then it's closed for the year and they're the projects I work on. And then there'd always be one independent collection that I did myself. It's always kind of offered as kind of like an open source thing on different ways to be sustainable in a brand, basically.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea, but I'm aware that it's a very different way of a fashion business working. But if you think about it, that's exactly how a PR business works. They have their brands and they help them.
And they
promote
advise,
themselves.
they try and
Yeah.
streamline their
Yeah.
guide
Offering.
to the world. Exactly.
Yeah. So, and then obviously now there's this whole thing of clothes being able to be worn digitally, which is really interesting because suddenly you can make like 1 million of the same thing and it's not anywhere near as harmful as making it in real life. So, and you can also offer them at a slightly lower price and things, so it's easier for people to get them. So
we're sort of curious to
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We're just going.
We have some questions from the chat. It says, this is your second time premiering your collection with Helsinki Fashion Week. Why Helsinki Fashion Week?
It's Helsinki Fashion Week because it's important that the event that I'm showing the show at first has the same kind of sustainability ethics as the other stuff.
The next question is for Derek. Derek, you are so well connected in the industry. What advice can you give to others?
To other designers or writers or editors or anybody?
Unfortunately, that is not specified.
They don't specify. Yeah. I often get that question a lot, like how do you get started in fashion? And the short answer of that question is, you know, I interned all through college, and then I got my first job as an assistant at Vogue, and I was fired for a year. And I learned more in that 1 year than I did in my 4 years of journalism school. So the short answer of that is work hard and don't be afraid to fail. I really thought it was all over when I got fired, but it was actually just beginning. So
excellent. Thank you for answering that question, Derek. That was a fantastic answer. Last question. Derek, what do you think about Helsinki Fashion Week's sustainability aspect?
I mean, Patrick and I sort of were talking about this. You know, I think I went to Copenhagen used to have the Sustainability Fashion Summit, and I went, I think like the first time, maybe it was like 8 years ago. So sustainability, maybe it was longer. I'm actually scared to know how long it was. Well, the first time I went to one of these sustainability summits. So it's always been something I was sort of interested in. And then maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that sort of came back almost like as a trend. You know, like this was like something that we needed to talk about. And I really feel like in the last 6 months, sustainability, supply chain, all these words have become core tenets of a brand. So now I think that is the that is the new. It's been great to see that go from an idea to a buzzword to a core tenet of business. So I think now brands that are not sustainability in their core are going to struggle going forward. Or at least I hope so, because it's important to know what you're making and how you're making, where it's coming from. So, yeah.
Thank you for answering the chat's questions. Much appreciated. And now it's time for us to wrap things up.
That was easy. Patrick, I'm so happy that we finally got, I mean, to meet, albeit digitally, over these devices. And I hope next Helsinki Fashion Week, I can be there in person, and maybe if they allow Americans in Europe anytime soon, maybe even before that. But thank you for doing this today.
No, thank you too. It's been great. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching as well.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.